van de PDC World Championships in 2012. The Hammer, Andy Hamilton.
School is in, sucker. Can't touch this. Give me a song, a rhythm, making them sweat. That's what I'm giving them now. They know. You talk about the hammer, you're talking about a show that's hyped and tight. Singles are sweating so fast, I'm a whiteboard tape. To learn what's it gonna take in the 90s to burn the charts. Legit. Either work hard or you might as well quit. That's word because you know you can't touch this. You can't touch this. Break it down. Stop. Hammer time.
Dames en heren, voormalig winnaar van de PDC World Cup of Darts, winnaar van de Masters en regerend champion of the world. Here is Snakebite Peter Wright.
Good time out there. Don't stop the party. Get nobody la fiesta. Don't stop the party.
I'm from the city where they stretch, yeah, they slinky. And now I'm doing shows in Helsinki. I know what y'all thinking that you can outthink me, but you can't, frankly.
Get nobody la fiesta. Don't stop the party.
I'ma give it to you, now give it to me, I'ma give it to you, now give it to me,
Get nobody la fiesta. Don't stop the party. Get nobody la fiesta. Don't stop the
Dames en heren, ik stel nog één man aan u voor. Onze caller, Kirk Bevins. Oftewel de Kirkulator. Give een applaus.
Fast approaching 8 o'clock here in Belgium on a Saturday night, and Peter Wright takes to a European Tour stage for the first time as a PDC World Champion. And as a World Champion, he knows he's got a great big target on his back, but you know what? He wouldn't have it any other way. His first European Tour campaign since beating Michael van Gerwen in the World Final on New Year's Day at Alexandra Palace. And he comes up against a man he knows very well indeed, a man he's played many times before, and a man he's been beaten by many times before as well. Andy Hamilton, the Hammer, back on the European Tour stage once again. And maybe, just maybe, in the mood to pull off what would be a huge upset. We have seen 4 seeded players fall by the wayside today, all of them in the afternoon session. So far so good though for tonight's seeds in action, Nathan Aspinall and Gerwyn Price. But now it's over to Peter Wright, the world champion, the number 4 seed here, and the man with the biggest scoring, the biggest averages on the Pro Tour this year. Rob Malarkey in the chair for this one, and alongside me, Paul Nicholson. Hamilton, a big price. Can you make a case for him?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. First leg, it's Peter to throw first. Game on.
Well, as Kirk gets us underway, to answer your question, you've got to have Peter as a monumentally huge favourite. And I say that with all respect to Andy. The difference in the averages this season so far, it's vast.
85.
And not often do I look at head-to-heads throughout the course of their time and think that it means a great deal. But the head-to-head between these two, for me, tells a great story. there have been spells where
60.
Andy's won games, a spell where Peter's won games. And yes, the last time Peter played Andy, he lost, and that was at a Players' Championship in October 2017. But on the whole, the form player of the two would win.
85.
So, that said, Peter Wright's going to win tonight.
Yeah, and 2 of those meetings were on the European Tour stage as well. Back-to-back quarter-finals a few years ago. Peter Wright coming out on top in both of those. So Peter Wright embarking on his first Euro Tour campaign as a world champion. He's already claimed his first Pro Tour title of this year. He beat Gerwyn Price, a match we mentioned a short while ago when Price was in action against Wesley Plaisir. Wright winning that final 8-6 last Saturday in Wigan. Both players averaging more than 109 over 14 legs. A phenomenal display of darts. It was arguably the greatest single day performance in Players' Championship history. Peter Wright averaging more than 100 in all but one of his matches on his way to that £10,000 prize. He missed a dart at double 20 to break his own broadcast record average. That was in that 6-0 win over Adrian Gray, but he still managed 120.2. It would have been a very different story had he taken out tops at the first time of asking.
99.
And then he also had to edge a very high caliber semi-final, I should say, with Devon Peterson as well. It was a terrific day, but you know what? Peter Wright says it's just the start. It's just the beginning of what's to come this year.
That's what he says all the time.
95.
But this time he means it. And this time he's really enjoying these new darts as well. Clearly.
So much so he hasn't changed them since. Well, he changed them for, I think it was the second game he played at the World Championships, and then he went back to them, and he hasn't used anything else since,
91.
which is nice.
Well, Hamilton's on 91 here for a break of throw as we talk about Peter Wright's opening salvos of 2020. 74 away.
Ooh, I wasn't expecting that.
PG Reguire 112.
Well, Andy may be expecting Peter to get a shot at a double here, and I agree. He's going to need to find that 60 top left corner.
Yeah, it's all about those decision-making processes for Andy Hamilton, I suppose, today. He'll have to second guess what Peter's going to do and what he's capable of. Well, we know what he's capable of. But Hamilton has been given the opportunity to return to the hockey once again. Tops well inside for double 10. And inside for double 5.
35.
And he's inside once again. So
Peter Reguire.
Problematic visit, that one, for Andy Hamilton. Peter Wright looking at double 15, and he's staring straight at the double 15 as well.
Double 6.
18.
Very scrappy first leg.
And he require 5.
Very much like a game we had with Rob Cross and Damon Heta earlier. This is one of those legs to forget, but if Andy nicks it, he will have broken Peter.
He's in the madhouse.
No
and
score.
He's busted score. Rob Cross, yeah, had a 26 dart break of throw in that 6-1 win over Damon Heta earlier. Double 3 for Peter Wright.
Yes, on the first leg,
it's a 23 dart hold of throw to start things off for the world champion.
He's had many a brace of legs this year already, and in his career where he's taken care of 2 legs and 23 darts. So I think records and things like that will be forgotten about. It's all about getting the W tonight. He did, of course, have a bit of a stutter on Thursday in Dublin against Gezi Price. But the way he's been playing this year, it has to go down as a bit of an anomaly.
Yeah. That's more like it than Peter Wright. Interesting as well, listening to Peter Wright. I mean, he's conducted 1,000 interviews since being crowned the world champion. But one of the things he asked himself was, you know, who knows what I can win this year? I think one thing he'd love to win this year is a European Tour event. As Hamilton rattles in a ton 80 of his own. Because let's face it, it's been a while. Didn't win one last year, didn't win one in 2018. Had a good start to 2017. Won a cluster of them at the start of that year, but hasn't won one since the end of 2017. And I think he'd, you know, quite like to put that right.
Yeah, very much so. He loves playing on the European Tour. I expect Andy Hamilton to lift his performance. Even though it was great for him to get a win in his last game with Andy Bolton, it was the last leg of that
58.
performance that really stood out. He scored so brilliantly to give himself the chance. But there's a real trend with Andy at this point in time, in my opinion, and that is when he needs to lift his game, he does. He needs to find that extra gear tonight. He's going to need to find a lot of it if Peter Wright's leaving doubles after 9 darts. During the BDO World Championships, he had a very scrappy win against Darren Irwini of New Zealand, but in the next game,
98.
when he played against
36.
the eventual champion, he played much better. Eventual champion of the world. There you go. Another pattern.
And the symmetry of darts in evidence once again. Well, this would be a 12-dart break, but once again the finishing isn't too convincing from Peter Wright.
84.
Hamilton back in business once again, looking at 84 this time.
As long as he stays straight with dart 1 here, he should get a shot at the bull. He'd love a shot at 12s. Gorgeous dart. Oh, he couldn't place a better guide for a shot at 12s. Oh, he'll be mystified as to how that didn't glance off that barrel and go into the red bit.
Nervy once again from Peter Wright. That too is off target, but closer.
No score.
Yeah, Peter Wright, as we did, just had to take a second glance at that one, but it was I think it was on its way in, but there was a slight deflection on the way through. But Hamilton once again looking at double 12, and he's looking at double 6.
It's another one of those legs.
12.
It's going to be one of those nights, I think.
18.
Okay, take 3, double 9.
That's more like it. 16-dart break of throw after the 23-dart hole for Peter Wright.
To throw first.
39 darts, 39 darts he's thrown, and he leads 2-0.
Tell you what, after 4 legs in that 120 average performance a couple of weeks ago, you can't have thrown many more than 39 darts in 4 legs.
No.
They've been somewhere in the region of the 45-46 mark. Andy will be livid inside with what's happened in this game so far, because Peter's been there for the taking.
96.
No worse feeling really in these kinds of games where you know you got to lift and you put yourself in position twice, and both times it just doesn't happen.
Well, once again the approach play is good by Peter Wright, so on this occasion
125.
just strayed wide of the mark with that final dart.
There you see the square on foot of Andy Hamilton, and he doesn't have a lot of distance between the feet there, but good centre of gravity, not a lot of movement when that propelling arm goes forward. With Peter, he uses that back foot just to steady himself. There's a little bit of movement there, but not too much. But both guys are advocates of the side of the foot square against the hockey. They're not putting the toe against it. So one thing you've got to be careful with doing that over the course of a long career is getting a little bit of an ankle pain.
It's clearly Peter Wright, though. You know, he won the world title on New Year's Day. There was perhaps a suggestion that he might just go off the boil inevitably, having got the big one. But what we've seen so far from him clearly proves that he's been working really hard to maintain the high standards that he's set himself. And you know, he clearly does want to win more world titles and major titles. And you've got to say that's testament to him and his work ethic as well.
Yeah, very much so. I think it's testament to what kind of person he is and what he wants to have achieved at the end of his career. Now, can Peter clean up this 52 a lot easier than the other doubles? The answer is yes. In 2, and that's a 14-darter. But winning is addictive. It's that adrenaline rush when you've hit that final double. There's nothing better than that. And when you've been through a tournament like the World Championships, as much as he was playing well, about 5 minutes after he lifted that trophy, he's thinking, well, at least I can enjoy this now. And I wouldn't have blamed him if he was in a little bit of pain after throwing thousands and thousands of darts over the course of 2.5 weeks.
140.
It was a really good ovation that he received from the crowd here as well, as we get another, well, closer insight into the stance of Andy Hamilton that Paul was analysing just a few moments ago.
Well, it's ankle against the hockey, that.
It's awkward, isn't it?
Yeah.
You'd think over time that would do some damage.
Yeah, I think that puts pressure on the knee. As you can see with Peter, he's got the entire sole on the floor. So his knee is pointing downwards. There's a vertical point between the middle of his foot and his knee, whereas with Andy, the ankle is going over, and I think there'll be pressure on the outside of his lead knee. But obviously, he isn't in any pain, because if he was, he wouldn't be doing it.
Well, we talked about Peter Wright's ovation from the crowd. Andy Hamilton's still very popular in this part of the world, isn't he? Well, on the European Tour circuit. I mean, he was interviewed by PDC Europe for their online TV coverage during the interval. Conducted a fairly lengthy interview with Philip Brzezinski, the host you may know from the German emceeing that he does on the German stages. He'll be emceeing tomorrow actually as well.
Andy's vastly popular wherever he goes. He's great with the fans, always has been. People like his brand of the game, wears his heart on his sleeve, and he gives everything every time. But now he's got 91 left. He'd love to clean up and leave 32 if he's going to go the 42 route.
35.
I think I'm right in saying this is Peter Wright's 71st European Tour event. There's only been, or this is the 79th, so he's not missed many of them. And that's again another feather in his cap as far as his commitment to the European Tour is concerned. I remember saying in commentary as well
60.
on New Year's Day that he's one of the guys, he turns up to virtually every European Tour event, every Pro Tour event. He's a great ambassador for the game, and that's one of the reasons why I was so pleased that he got the big fish, got the big prize.
Well, Andy Hamilton's just got his first leg.
Game on.
Now, that was the danger of how Andy's darts sit. When he gets that single 20, he's going to block that tops no matter what. So he was prepared to go to the right of that dart. That was a gorgeous shot. So getting his first chalk mark, that'll pep him up a little bit to try and chip away at what Wright he's got in his column. But he's going to have to score more consistently, I feel.
Yeah. Well, let's face it, I mean, Peter Wright, it would have been a surprise had he come out all guns blazing with a 10 darter or an 11 darter. It was always going to be a little bit of a bedding in process. First night of action for Peter Wright. A lot of expectation on his shoulders, and I'm sure he still feels that as well to an extent, given despite everything that he's achieved in the game. We've seen it before on the European Tour stage in particular. He is one of these players who sometimes just needs a couple of rounds just to get himself bedded in for a big run.
Well, that's the thing about Sunday, isn't it? If you get yourself in the afternoon and then into the night session, anything is possible. Win a European Tour event from a non-seeded position, potentially, for Andy, or indeed from a seeded position for Peter.
140.
It's a really good grounding block for what will come for the next 10 months. And of course, doesn't matter whether you're world champion. Peter Wright's not in the European Championship yet. There's no guarantee that he'll be there.
Yep.
All the money earned on the European Tour goes towards the European Order of Merit.
Yeah, this is effectively the first stage of qualifying for the European Championship at the end of the year. I mentioned he didn't win a title last year. He did go close. He was beaten by Ian White 8-7 in the final of the European Darts Grand Prix. He made 4 further semi-finals as well. Finished 7th on the European money list last year. But as far as the Europeans themselves are concerned, he was beaten first round by Jeffrey Desvan. So that's something else he'd like to address this year as well, I think.
Well, if he fancies another title at Sindelfing, and he hasn't got long to wait.
No, we're back there. 21st of March or 19th of March or so?
Yeah, that was the scene of his greatest European Tour victory, a 6-0 final victory against MVG, which included one of the best 1-6-1s I've ever seen. Now, Andy's going to need a belter of a 137 out here, I feel. I don't think Peter's going to miss that 65. Yeah, it was going to be the 57 tops route.
Yeah.
97. Peter requires 65.
Well, it's again an effective lead for Andy Hamilton in case Peter Wright fluffs his lines here, but 65, he said he should take it out, and he's got 2 darts at tops for a 4-1 lead now. Gorgeous,
on the 5th leg.
delightful
Peter
darts, lovely 2-dart combination. That's
Big
more
leg
like
is
it from
Andy to
Peter
throw
Wright, nothing
first.
wrong with that
Game
whatsoever.
on.
I get asked a lot about that shot, and our co-commentator buddy Chris Murphy once had a Twitter poll about 65 as to the best route to go for it, because I don't think he was convinced that going for the 25 and tops was the best route. So anyway, after that I talked to different people and different analysts within the game as to whether a world-class dart player will aim for the 25 or just go for the centre of the board and hope that they hit the 25 instead of the bullseye.
Yeah.
I can confirm that people like Peter Wright are going for the 25. He'll be picking a certain quadrant of it.
It's a bigger target, effectively. I know, as you say, you need a quadrant to go for, but
60.
Dart players aren't hopeful in what they're going for. They can hit skinny doubles. They can definitely hit a skinny 25.
yeah, and they don't aim for necessarily, sometimes all the time, for the treble 20. It will be a certain portion of the treble 20 bed, as is the case here.
104.
That time it was off target.
Look at how disappointed he is with that 140. They're the standards he lives by now. And when you look at their head-to-head, when Andy was the stronger of the two, he won 4 games on the trot, I think.
46.
Peter was a different player back then. Andy was a heavyweight. He was top 10 guy. But then everything flipped, and Peter, he was the heavyweight, and Andy was the one that was doing the grinding.
And often, as just going back to that as well, if you've got, say, your first 2 darts in the treble 20 bed are on the left-hand side, even though there's a wide open space on the right-hand side, you'll still find players going for the left because they've got that natural grouping anyway, and they're using the first 2 to go into third.
Yeah. Oh, this has got to be in.
I'll be disappointed with that.
Peter
There was a chance to just
61.
apply some pressure with Wright on 161.
Couldn't have walked to the board and placed them in 2 better spots. But, mentioned the 161 in Sindelfingen 3 years ago. He's going to go for it. Trying to bring the crowd to their feet and keep them on side.
Yeah, there's been just a little bit of a lull in the atmosphere. It's gone a bit hushed and a bit sedate because Peter Wright isn't in any sort of bother here, and it's just a fairly comfortable ride so far. But I wouldn't write him off just yet. He's certainly capable of just making life difficult for Peter Wright here, but double 80 once for a 5-1 lead.
There's not many players in the world that are better at the adjustment like that. He's trying to open up the bed, but that time it hits the flight and skews to the left. And if Andy wants to guarantee a shot for this leg to get within 2, he's got to stay straight. 2 10s. Oh, really good from Hammer.
Andy Hamilton.
Somewhat ironic celebration. He knows he hasn't played his best in this game so far, but he's not out of this by any means.
And you could make a case that perhaps it should be 3-3 instead of 4-2, but well, on we go. We'll see how the next leg pans out. If Peter Wright does slip up, then Andy Hamilton might just make his move. Hamilton, by the way, we talked about symmetry. Hamilton mentioned it yesterday as well, but a reminder, if you weren't with us for the opening win he enjoyed over Bolton yesterday, he hasn't played a European Tour event prior to this weekend since the event in Riesa in September 2017, and that was the last European Tour event that Peter Wright won.
How weird.
So, there you are.
That must have been the last year that Gerwin Price lost in Riesa. He's won the last 2 years.
100.
If he wins it again, I'm probably going to have to rename the trophy after him.
6-5 win yesterday for Andy Hamilton against Andy Bolton. Hit 4 180s in that one, average just over 90.
134.
And come through the Tour Card qualifier, a Tour Card that he won back at the start of this year via the Q School Order of Merit.
See how long those darts have become that Peter Wright has constructed with his manufacturer. Every piece of it is quite long. You see with Andy's, it's a bit more compact, a bit more bulbous at the middle part of the barrel. Standard flight.
96.
Not a very long point at all. But
140.
with Peters, everything's long. The point's long, the barrel's long, the stem's long. It's a big flight. It's a lot to handle. Oh, look, I knew he was going to do that.
Yeah.
That
100.
left side, like you were talking about with the 60, he can just glance off that first one with a little bit of extra power and just slide it in that 60. It was a beautiful shot.
Yeah, Andy Hamilton adrift in this leg as well on the Peter Wright throw.
92.
Winner of this to
Uruguay
face
40.
Danny Noppert, who produced the biggest average of his career earlier today. So great occasion, great achievement by Danny Noppert earlier.
Yes,
Top
It
for
is
Wright is in.
Peter
Peter
Watimena,
Wright.
and Peter Wright does lead
He's
5-2,
there,
and
Andy
it
to
does
throw
look as though
first.
it will be Peter
Game
Wright to
on.
face Danny Noppert in round 3 tomorrow.
Did you get the feeling that Danny this afternoon knew he was playing that well? Because he struck me as the kind of player that
48.
wasn't going to sit back and coast over the line. He wanted to push really hard and try and get that big statistic.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been in the back of his mind. I think his primary objective was to get the job done as quickly as he can, because he knows that
100.
Watimena can be capable of being a real nuisance factor, and I think purely and simply he just didn't want to leave anything to chance. He knows him very well, doesn't he? Of course, he knows all about him, so I think it was just first and foremost a safety first exercise, but it worked out very well for him in
58.
the end.
Yeah, you're right about Watimena. He can steamroll in 2 or 3 legs in no time. And if it is Peter Wright to go and play Danny Noppert, it'll be a very deliberate game. 2 guys who really do aim before they throw.
78.
Just before we get too far down the road in this leg, you normally make a comment or two about Peter Wright's attire and colour schemes. Anything to say?
The top and the pants don't match.
Right.
They never do.
Nice touch with the mohawk with the Belgian colours there.
Yeah, I do like
41.
that. I like it when he goes to a different country and he salutes the flag with the bonnet. Looks like one of those rocket lollies you used to get for 50 pence off the ice cream man. I'm a fan of that. Extra sprinkles on it.
97.
Not quite sure if there are any extra sprinkles on this Peter Wright performance. I don't think he'll attach too much significance to his numbers today, certainly. But he'll say what he said many times before. It's all about just coming through.
83.
You know, room for improvement for tomorrow, should he get there. And it looks as though he will. 2-2-6 plays 2-7-1. And Peter Wright will get down to a finish first. And it may well be a very manageable finish as well for Peter Wright. 86, 2-dart combination left to get.
See, if Andy starts on 60s here, now he's got to go 19s for me. This is where a lot of the new school kids are going on 2-7-1. If you can't do that, there is a different way of getting there, and it's totally negated it. Thanks, Andy. Stepped on me point.
Then again, if you do take out the big fishes, then all well and good. Anyway, here we go. Oh, double.
70.
Next time
And
someone's on
you want
2-7-1, I'll
91.
talk about it again. Now, where will he go for the 91? 25-16 ball?
Or is he looking at the 17s? Yes, he is. He's going for the double again. And once again, it's not worked out for him.
51. Peter Uruguay 16.
Stuck to his guns, and credit to him for that. But Peter Wright, double 80 once for a 6-2 win. This would be a 17, potentially an 18 darter. It's 17.
Peter Wright.
And Peter Wright home and hosed with a 6-2 win in his first European Tour event since becoming a world champion. Fairly comfortable as far as the scoreline is concerned, but I'm pretty sure Peter Wright won't attach too much significance to it. It's all about getting the job done and all about making improvements for tomorrow. And it will be a tough assignment for him in the third round, because he will face Danny Noppert, a big scorer today in his win over Jermaine Watimena. But Peter Wright acknowledges the crowd. Andy Hamilton, in his first Euro Tour event for some time, can take a bit of credit from what he's achieved this weekend as well. Right safely through 6-2. Stand by. MVG, the world #1 against Mike De Decker, is on next.
Peter Wright, the crowd loves you.
Yeah, you guys are absolutely fantastic. Thank you for the support. You're amazing.
Well, I saw you looking a little bit disappointed sometimes. You had no trouble scoring, but those doubles, they disappointed you. Or what do you expect for this game?
I expected, well, I said to Michael in the back room, MVG, I wanted to come out and break Dave Chisnell's record. I had that set in my mind. But come out here, the crowd were expecting some fantastic stuff. I do apologise, but I'm here tomorrow, so I'm going to up it.
No, because tomorrow you face Danny Noppert, who threw his biggest average of his career, 108.96. You have to step up your game for tomorrow.
That's not a bad average, is it? When I've been in 120-odd averages, so he needs to up it a little bit more.
All right, good luck. Peter Wright. Dames en heren, uw applaus voor Peter Wright.